this is Tom with the Tractor Rescue Ranch. My son James and I are on a road trip today, and this is a really fun trip. I thought I'd bring you guys along. I know it's not tractor related, but it's kind of sawmill related. We're going up to Montana to work on a project that James is doing on a hydroelectric project that he's building for a rancher up there. The rancher passed away, but his daughter is continuing on with the project. But anyway, there used to be an old sawmill up there that was powered by water, and on that ranch they have water rights, and so I'm just heading up here with him to do some preliminary work before he puts the turbines in that he's working on to start generating electricity for him on the ranch. So I'll let James do a little bit of explanation of what's going on.
Yeah, so the cool thing about this ranch is it's been in their family since almost the mid-1800s, like almost Civil War times. And their family first moved in there. Some of their water rights, I've never seen water rights that old, but the original power, like they brought in a little hydro power plant there, like my dad was saying, was to power a sawmill. And we'll be able to see some of the original pulleys for that sawmill that are still there. The original powerhouse is still there. Sometime, I'm guessing in the 40s or 50s, his family bought an old hydroelectric turbine from Seattle. It's a really goofy looking one. We'll show it to you. It's still up there too. It looks like a big UFO. Anyways, that's how they got power recently. Even before that, they had another hydroelectric in there. This was the first ranch in the whole area to get electricity back in the day. So pretty, kind of actually historic. Anyways, they ran the entire ranch on that hydroelectric until the 90s. And then finally, the housing on the turbine cracked, and everything just kind of went into disrepair after that point. So then a few years ago, they brought me on, and since then we have re-poured the concrete for all of the outlet works, put in new penstock piping, fixed up the powerhouse. We pulled out the old turbine and poured the concrete for the new turbines. And so what we're installing now are two cross-flow hydroelectric turbines. And with these, I had to design them from scratch. I had to do all the machining on them, all the welding, like everything. And then COVID hit, and it just kind of delayed the project. So we're heading back up to test out the entire outlet works. So we're gonna fill the canal with water. We're gonna fill up the penstock. The turbines aren't ready to be put on yet, but we're gonna make sure the site itself is good. And so it's pretty cool. Like they still have the original generator set in there. Yeah, it's like the original Westinghouse voltmeters, amp meters, all the original stuff still in there. And so we are basically getting it back online just with updated equipment. But that's kind of what we're up to. And as you can see, it's getting prettier and prettier. I think up past those mountains, on the other side of those mountains is Big Sky, Montana. So that kind of gives you a reference on where we're at. But we still have a ways to go until we get to the ranch. But we'll show you more when we get there.
Okay, so we are inside James's shop here, and I was going to let James
Talk about this.
show you about this.
So this is just all dry fit together. This is the cross-flow hydroelectric turbine that I'm designing and building. Still really rough, but at least the parts are coming together. Kind of the way this works is you'll have the front mounting plate here. The water will come through these two chambers, so it'll come over these valves. And what happens is when it comes over the valves, it hits these blades and gets caught and shoots down into it. Now the cool thing with this is this top piece is going to come along here and it'll curve and follow the blades. So the water will actually have a really long path to be able to enter, because they'll be able to go all along here. The nice thing with this, and you can kind of see it through here, so the water will come in between the blades. Neat thing about these turbines is, like let's say the water's coming here, hits this blade, shoots through here, and what it does is it goes to the bottom and hits the opposite curve and hits it again a second time. So these get, they recover some of the energy on the second pass, so that makes them a little bit more efficient. The way this one's going to work, so at the top I'll have a cross member here, and it'll have chains and a threaded rod, and those chains will grab onto here, and it's the same on both sides, and it'll pull this up. And so if you imagine the top plate of it, of the turbines right here, the water's coming through here, this is how we close it off. And so that's fully closed. But if you have it open just a little, what it's going to do is the water's going to come, hit here, basically create a jet, and then follow around until it hits these blades in the very back.
So depending on how much power you need at any given time, that'll automatically go up and down.
Exactly. So for the ranch that we're doing this with, they already had a hydroelectric. We're just replacing the turbine. They have a PTO generator is what is going to actually be powering everything. It's already wired in. That's kind of the cool thing, is this isn't actually new. The nice thing with this, for controls, the main controlling point is the generator has to spin at 520 RPM, if I remember right on this one. And so if they put a load onto the system, it'll start spinning, like slowing down the turbine. And so what'll happen is once it puts the load on the system, the controller recognizes this is slowing down. All it does is do this and open it up a little bit more to speed it back up. And if they take a load off of their electrical system and it's going too much, you just go like this. And so I don't have any of the actual pins in there, but I just have at least the pieces dry fit. So nice and compact, and then the water, once it goes through here, it just drops straight out the bottom and just goes into the channel down the stream that's already there. So there'll be two of these. This is the first one I'm putting together. They'll be side by side, and then all the V-belts will hook to a common shaft to run the turbine.
And James has done all of the engineering work on the design of this machine.
I designed it from absolute scratch.
And then he's also done all the building work on it.
Yep. So all the machining, all the welding, everything. So it's going to be exciting to see this come together.
Well, we made it here. There is the house, generator house. Anyway, this is that old turbine that James was talking about. The original one. You can see that the base of it cracked out of it. That's the reason they had to quit using it. But kind of a unique old thing there, isn't it? This is an old line shaft. Must have been part of the original sawmill stuff. So what it was, I was told, originally the sawmill, this door right here, the sawmill was out here where the car's parked, and they just had flat belts running out of here to run the mill. But this is one of the main reasons I wanted to do a video of this, is all of this old cool antique stuff here. All these really old generators. All the old original stuff. I'm sure some of this stuff goes back to the late 1800s, I would bet. So what they originally had was that turbine was down here on this side, so it came up to an old line shaft here, and then it ran with those flat belts. It ran this line shaft back here, and then they ran going out these holes. They ran these flat belts to run the sawmill. I wish the old sawmill was still here, but he had said that it was cleaned up years ago. I'm sure it was probably scrapped, which is a shame. But there's just so much old cool stuff here to regulate this generator, these generators. All of this stuff belongs in a museum. A voltmeter and an amp meter. Westinghouse Electrical. Anyway, lots of neat stuff in here. Wishing that it could somehow go to some place where it could be displayed or something. I just think this kind of stuff is cool as all get out, so hope you guys enjoyed as well. Thought this was interesting. Look at this flat belt, how it's just laced together with the leather, some leather straps. That's pretty cool. And this other one is the same way. How them old timers did it. I don't know how many years that flat belt goes back, but a long time. And this is kind of cool. This piece here. So what happened with that old round turbine down there that we showed you? This shaft came up through the floor vertically, and then it tied in to this piece, which turned the power horizontal. So that's where how they changed the direction from that vertical shaft from that turbine to horizontal power that came up here and ran these line shafts. So I'm standing in the canal. This is a wall here to do it, and here's the spillway for extra water that doesn't get used. So the water in this canal is we're gonna go turn it on up there and get some water down and test the whole system. So this is the canal further on down, and then that right there is the river. They've got the water rights to pull out of that river. What a place to own, huh? Piece of property like this with water rights to run a hydroelectric plant. That's something that's pretty rare in this country in today's world. So this is the head gate to let water into the canal. That's just got part of the river diverted over to come into this canal. You may end up having to shut that head gate down a little bit.
Yeah, we will.
Here it comes. Once it starts flowing, there'll be a lot of sticks to clean up out of the bottom of that. Here comes the water. That's just barely open, and that's a lot of water coming. So the idea right here is to fill this canal full of water and make sure the spillway is going to work out. And also we're going to turn this head gate open a little bit and make sure we don't have leaks and stuff going down into the bottom of the pipe. There's the view from the backyard of this place. I understand that is it state owned or power company owned? Another?
It's private owned.
Oh, so there's another privately owned generator, water hydro plant further up the canyon from here.
All this water goes through that hydro plant before it gets to here.
Water running over the spillway. For now, everything seems fine with it. So this is one of the reasons we came up here today. All of these foundations, you can see those brackets, all of these foundations we had to level and tighten up. So there's I don't know how many of them there are though. Those foundations.
3, 4, 5, 7 or 8.
7 or 8 of them that we had to all line up so everything's up tight against the pipe. So there's the bottom of the pipe, got water coming. That head gate going into the pipe is still shut off mostly. We just needed to check it and make sure that it was going to open and close on us. So what's going to happen here, we'll tie into that pipe and come out to here onto this foundation here, and there will be a turbine here on this side and a turbine there, and then all the water will just run right back out there and back into the creek. So this is the water coming after the spillway. It comes down here and goes under a culvert, past things here, and then eventually ends up back in the creek. But we've got all of the water diverted over the spillway right now, just testing things, so you won't have near this much flow while the generator's going. So we walked downstream a little bit to check and make sure the water wasn't backing up and overflowing somewhere, and ran across this, and I would almost guarantee that this predated that spaceship shaped turbine up there. So this had to have been the original one. Be curious to see what the innards of it looks like, but if you could get to it. But it had that big flat belt there, so this has got to go back.
To the sawmill.
Yeah, back
The
to the
original
sawmill
sawmill.
era. And
I thought this big thing over here was for processing wheat, grinding wheat. I thought they did that at one time.
so anyway, it would be interesting to know exactly the story behind all of this stuff, but it's had to have been what we're thinking here. It would go back to what, 150 years ago? Maybe more than that.
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere around 100.
Possibly the 1900s, but could be the 1800s.
Yeah, I think it probably goes back into the 1800s from what they were talking about their water rights going back
Yeah,
that
the
far.
original water rights are in the 1860s.
Pretty cool. This is what James was thinking was an original grain mill or something that was hooked to the system. I don't know. It's kind of hard to piece things together and figure out what it was. Big roller here, and the other side looks like the same thing, and it looks like there was another roller that probably went along with that. This old iron is sure neat.